Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, social media, TV, film, everything. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is an actress, a writer, a director, a producer. We are with Jillian Armenante. Jillian, welcome to Popternative.
Oh, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Writer, actress, director, I think you could put all of those in the category of a storyteller.
Yes.
When did you decide you wanted to be a storyteller?
Gosh, I wanted to act at a very young age and then decided to pursue it professionally when I was about 16, 17. But I became an all-around performer, storyteller, director, producer, writer, choreographer, light director, whatever. When I stumbled upon a small theater in Seattle called Annex Theater. Wow. And it was an old cooperative company. It's still going 32 years later in Seattle, Washington. And we all learned how to do everything. We weren't acting, we were writing, we were hanging lights or doing choreography. And it was just a company that believed in being well-rounded was sort of the best pursuit of the expressive arts, so to speak.
For sure. And you've worked in TV, film, and the theater as well. Is there one of the three that you like over the other two, or do you kind of like them and treat them equally?
I like all three mediums equally. Because they all involve the same sort of skill set in terms of group and, improving yourself with, better tennis players than you are and getting to be around. It's a great profession because you get to play with 4-year-olds and 84-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that because it's not really life in a bubble, but so it's nice having different cultures and ages and everything.
And you've been in a lot of things, but I think things that come to mind in terms of TV is Judging Amy, and most recently Fresh Off the Boat, which is
sure.
one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
So, and what I find interesting about Fresh Off the Boat is there are so many sitcoms about families, so many of them. That's like a formula that a lot of people use. But with Fresh Off the Boat, even shows like the Goldbergs and other shows like that, they have elements in them that I feel like make them stand out, and they just become very unique, and they're not just like a story. Like the whole 90s, Eddie telling a story on Fresh Off the Boat is amazing and fresh.
Yeah, Judging Amy was particularly a family for me because it was one of my first jobs when I moved to Los Angeles. I got very lucky in that all the major players on the show were all theater people as well. Tyne Daly, Amy Brenneman, Dan Futterman, Jessica Tuck. So there was that family and that camaraderie. And here we've been off the air for like 13 years or something. Mm-hmm. And yet we're all still friends. I spend Thanksgivings with Tyne. I spend Easters with Amy. We're all still quite a family. Fresh Off the Boat, I was very lucky to be cast by Anya Koloff, and that's a Jake Kasdan show as well, who did Bad Teacher. I did have to leave Fresh Off the Boat to do another show called The Mayor, which got canceled. So right now I'm not on Fresh Off the Boat. Doesn't mean I can't come back, but I like that show because, first of all, really gifted comedians and, having a different television and exploring what that means, and sort of, I think, was just such a privilege to be involved in. So,
mm-hmm. What do you kind of think about, you mentioned, Judging Amy hasn't been on air in about 13 years. I mean, what do you think about kind of the change of the landscape of television specifically with all these new streaming outlets? There's so much more content out there, but I'm always struggling because I can't watch it all. Like, there's too much. I don't have time.
Well, it's sort of power to 10 years ago. I wouldn't have dreamed of, getting up a camera and making my own television show, which is what I did about 5 years ago. I decided, well, let's get all my friends and let's make something myself. And I decided to not. I crowdfunded and I put together a show called. And I asked my buddies, Joel McHale from Seattle, Tyne Daly's in it, Amy Brenneman's in it, and we made this crazy, tongue-in-cheek, funny comedy for $50,000. 2 hours of content. It's on Amazon and iTunes. So to me, to be able to have other people and not be touched by a studio head or a financier, and to be able to roll up your sleeves and go like, well, let's do this ourselves and not wait for approval, is part of the pleasure of it. I know watching it all is difficult to do. But then again, they're waiting for their kids in the carpool. So, if you hear something's good, you can find it, I think.
And do you think that's why web series are on the rise? Because a lot of web series are shorter too, right? So you can kind of sit at your computer and binge about 10, 15 web series the whole day, and it's like 10, 15 minutes each episode-wise. Do you think that's why? Because I feel like web series are taking off.
Well, it's interesting because, even producerially, because I'm also a producer, online media is a totally different ballgame than, say, the full theatrical release or something like that. And so I think it's more accessible for people to make. I think the contracts are easier to accomplish as a producer. And because there's short form content now, you can get a quick hit, and the world is just want to like, oh, that's funny, and move on. People still have their hour longs or whatever, but if you're in a hurry and you got electronics around you, it's easy to pick up a 7-minute episode of something and enjoy yourself.
And it's funny because, Popturnative, our podcast is a lot shorter, but a lot of people, when they think of podcasts, there's some long podcasts out there.
Yes, there are.
There's some podcasts that are like, every episode is like an hour and 20 minutes. And, people love it. You know what I mean? But I kind of I wanted to make my interviews a bit shorter so that people kind of do marathons and do 4 or 5.
Well, they want quick hits. When I was a kid, our TV was 3 channels. You had to get off the couch and go, turn the channel. You know what I mean? Now you're like, nope, no, maybe, I don't know, no. You know what I mean? It's just the form has changed. And yeah, I prefer something that, is bite-sized rather than a giant, thing. So, like that.
What do you kind of think about, I think of every time because you've been in a lot of different things, and I'm sure every time you go to work, and whether it has to do with who you like work with or the script, there's always going to be learning experiences, whether it's your first project or projects that you've been doing for a long time. What have been some of the your key learning experiences on certain shows, and maybe Judging Amy, or on your show that you created? What has been some of the key learning experiences? Because there's always room to grow. There's always things you're going to learn.
Well, there's the picture in your head when you read the script, but it's a collaborative art. So you can't have an agenda driven in your head knowing what you think it's going to be like, because it's collaborative as an artist and a director and as an actor. Then it's as the post-production team puts their craft in. And so it's really a bit of a when you're making, because you had 35 cooks in your kitchen, it's very different than just you. So, I tried when I was younger, I was a little surprised by the output, the result, going like, how did that happen? But now that I'm a little more seasoned, no pun intended with the cooking metaphor, I'm less surprised. One thing that has always confounded me is because I equally do dramas and comedies, is when I do these dramas, the people are so damn funny between takes. And then I do these comedies and all the comedians are like,
why do you think that is? That's interesting to me.
I don't know. Because I'm always like, whatever. I always like to have fun. I'm kind of a goof because I like to keep the energy up. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's really strange. What you mentioned before we recorded, you have some movies coming out right now, but we talked about TV, but let's talk about movies because you've done quite a few movies, and I was just talking about it before we started recording, but like Bad Teacher was on, and there you are just rocking the drums in the bar with the teacher's band.
Yeah, that was funny. As I was telling you, my agent called and said, "Do you play drums?" And I was like, "Sure." It's sixth grade. I played Hawaii Five-0. And then when I got to set, the director, Jake Taston, basically said, "In 2 days, you're playing the drums with the band featuring Justin Timberlake. Are you good with that?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I sat in my trailer like with buckets and sticks, like, and I called all my friends and said, "You got to teach me how to drum in 2 days." But they used my track, so it could have been that bad.
Is there also we're seeing it's been a wild month for television. The amount of shows that have been canceled is just it's crazy to me. It's just nuts. Is that just kind of like what is that testament to? Like is that just the industry, just like people like I don't know what to say about that because there's a lot of other streaming, like for example, Brooklyn Nine-Nine just got saved, right? There's some talks that a couple of the shows that got canceled might be saved by Netflix or Hulu.
Right.
Are all these cancellations happening because people are just always trying to find new things, or do you still think ratings have a big part about it?
I think it's more honestly first game. I mean, back in the day, I heard a story. I worked with Nicole Yorkin, and her father, Bud Yorkin, wrote MASH. And I heard that MASH was just like, they were like, "No, I don't like it." His wife said, "I think see what happens with it." You know what I mean? And it used to be a little more art and story driven. Now I feel like with the advertising model on networks versus the subscription model on non-networks, which are technically online.
Yep.
I mean, anything on Netflix is a streaming television show. That's not a regular contract, right? I feel like that's a little more of a financial thing because when you do a TV show, I always say, Judging Amy didn't help me buy my house. So it's all about the upfronts and advertising and how much money is going toward a show and who believes in it. So it's just a different game. And with the, it's like a New York City Lyft. It's like anybody can drive a Lyft. The cab's more expensive, but it's a different ride. So.
Well, it's changing. The industry's changing for sure. But I think that even with these big Marvel movies, and I just think that people are just gonna make these huge movies, and no one's ever gonna get tired of them. I think people are still gonna go see them and still watch them. What do you kind of think about that? Because it's like everyone that comes out just seems to break records. I mean, people were talking about Black Panther, then they were talking about the Avengers, and now Deadpool's breaking records. It's just insane. It's nonstop.
Yeah, and as a tiny indie filmmaker, I know that it's going to be left to people like me to make the tiny stories that are human because we just don't have that kind of money. And so even I like to get my itch scratched as well and go see Black Panther and just be like, whoa, like blown away by things exploding in car chases. And it's it's like a euphoric drug when you to see that kind of thing. And as long as you relate to them on a human level, I feel like it doesn't matter if it's a large budget or a small budget, as long as there's something you identify with and root for. It doesn't matter how big the car explodes.
No, for sure. Well, I think we'll wrap up. But Jillian, thank you so much for joining me on Popternative. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I did want to tell you about my project Stuck, which was just picked up for distribution. I acted in it, produced it. It's been killing on the festival circuit. So look out for that. It's starring Heather Matarazzo, Joel McHale, Kate Flannery, Amir Talai, really amazing actors. And it's a great little story. There's not $300 million worth of car explosions, but it's quite enjoyable.
Very cool. Where can people follow you on social media?
Let's see. I'm on Twitter at Jill Armenante. I know that's a mouthful, but I'm Italian. Armenante. Probably Jillian Armenante on Facebook. Armenante.com and Jill1911 on Instagram, maybe Jill Armenante. I don't know.
Perfect. Well, Jill, thank you so much for joining me on Popternative.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Well, this has been Popternative. You can catch previous episodes, Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for the video. And then you can subscribe to us on iTunes, follow us on Spotify for the audio versions. Until next time, this is Jillian Armenante and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.